and I like a dad cannot.
Oh, really?
We.
Really?
It's Simon Hicks.
They'll loosen up that line. You won't see 11 players within 5 yards of that
I
body.
think I mentioned, what, a bludgeoning or something like that. That's what they came out and did.
7 state championships since 2014.
I tell you what, for those young men, there's no better feeling right now.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of FYFFE, the podcast. You're getting us on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you may be listening. We thank you for tuning in. Episode 12 of FYFFE, the podcast, coming at you right now. I'm Adam Ward alongside Drew Sims, Greg Mears, and Jeremy Johnson here with you for the next little bit, talking, of course, all things Fife as much as we can because some news came down over the weekend. Thanks to baseball falling to Vincent in the second round of the playoffs. That does impact Fife football. We'll get into that a little bit later on, as well as get into the NFL draft and all kinds of other things to give you sort of a rundown of what this episode will contain. But first, let me just tell you and remind you, because it ought to be a reminder by now. If you've been following us, you know that we're brought to you by our friends over at FYFFE. You can get a sweet treat, get them over to your event, whatever the case may be. You can go by the Fife ball fields, and even though high school baseball is over with at the high school, the little ones are just really getting into the thick of things. You stop on by those Fife ball fields. In fact, a couple of times already, just since late last week, I was coming home and I met one of the trailers headed to the ball fields. And at one point I wanted to turn around and just hightail it right behind him and lay on the horn the whole time, say, I'm coming, preserve my strawberry banana. It's kind of mine and Bev's special thing. When it heats up, we like to go get us one of those shaved ices and FYFFE. Man, Greg, you were there last week. Mwah.
Perfect thing for a hot afternoon.
And it's going to get hotter, folks, as things heat up. You need to cool down. Why not do it with a sweet treat in your mouth? I keep referring to it as a sweet treat. Again, 2 locally owned retired educators spanning 3 generations of Fife high school graduates. And they're going to come up and set up with for anything you need. All you got to do, just pay them to get there. That's all you got to do. They'll take care of the rest. Give them a call, 256-717-7239. Again, 256-717-7239. Now, I mentioned it a moment ago. What's upcoming on this week's podcast? There will be spring football at Fife High School. And again, that is due to the Fife baseball team, unfortunately, falling to Vincent in the second round. And Greg will get into that a little bit later on because he got to be there and watch. And they tried to make a comeback. They tried to make a game of it, especially in that second game when it was do or die. Greg will get into that for us a little bit. We'll talk spring practice in full with Drew and especially what that means. We'll address any questions that the guys may have heading into spring, what they need to see and that sort of thing. Also upcoming, the NFL draft recap. In case you missed it, Thursday through Saturday, rounds 1 through 7 in the NFL draft. A lot of this going on in our group chat, shall we say. And then, of course, we're going to reintroduce a segment that we've kind of had tossed by the wayside the last few weeks, the What's on Your Mind 10 Minutes of Crap segment, mainly because we want these guys to lay it all on the line because we're coming towards the end of the podcast season for Red Devil Radio. We'll also get with Greg on where was he at, his T-shirt segment, and, of course, give you what's upcoming at Fife. And with that said, let's get rolling with the Fife spring practice beginning. Again, I don't want to stay on this too long, but, Greg, you got to be there on Friday as the baseball team unfortunately fell to Vincent in 2 games. It's a best 2 out of 3. Tell me what you saw that day. Fife will begin football spring practice because of baseball falling in the second round.
Well, Vincent, good team. I think they were 24-4, 26-4, something like that. So when you think about that, you think about good pitching probably in the high school ranks. And their number 1 pitcher in the first game, man, he could bring it. He had some heat, got run ruled. Fife never really got close to any really solid contact on that one. Go into the second game, and Vincent jumped on him again. It got up by I think they were down by 5 or 6 runs late, and made a tremendous comeback in the 6th and 7th inning. 7th inning, bases loaded. They'd already scored 4 runs. They were down 9-8, nobody out, and switched pitchers again. They brought in the number 1 pitcher. He had some eligibility left, hadn't thrown enough pitches to not be able, and he came in and mowed them down. It was struck out the side, 2 guys looking, 1 guy swinging. And again, you could just see the quality in that one pitcher. And that, again, in small baseball, 2A baseball, you've only got to have one guy like that.
Yeah.
And especially they weren't, again, we didn't get close the first one. And I do promise to all players in the future, I will never go watch another playoff game. I've seen them play 4 or 5 right now, including a chance at the state championship. And I've not seen them win one. So that's it. I'm done. Black cloud out. But they did play a great game there at the end. Again, they didn't give up. And I think that's something you see with the guys at FYFFE, and no matter what sport it was. Played a team that was probably better. Well, they were better than them, not probably better than them. And unfortunately, it looks like everybody in the county, in the area, the mountain went down this weekend too. So nobody going any further from around here. Collinsville lost a good series. North Sand Mountain lost to Red Bay. And then, of course, obviously, FYFFE fell to Vincent. So looks like spring football all the way around.
Yeah, I got to talk with Noah Gwynn of both the football team and the baseball team. Of course, it impacts him with losing in baseball. He turns around on Monday, the day of recording, and begins spring practice for football. So not much rest for the weary. I was talking to him on Sunday at church, and I can't remember. He said Army or Air Force recruit for the number 1 pitcher. I can't remember it, but
I can see that.
But he was telling me that young man, and it was incredible because Noah could recount every pitch. I think he said it took 9 pitches to strike out 3 batters. And it was like strikeout. I think you said strikeout looking, and then just a swing and a miss on the third on the third strikeout there. So tough way to end it. But hey, I know baseball season started tough. We talked to Tucker Wilkes very early on at the start of baseball season. He said it had started kind of rough and they needed to get their legs back under them. Making it to the second round in high school baseball at any level it means something. It means you've collected yourself rather well. But with that being said, that means football is going to take place. They'll get 10 days worth of spring practice. Drew, you have been there with Coach Benefield. We kind of talked about this very early on in this podcast season when we first got rolling, but let's remind the folks what Coach Benefield, how he utilizes spring, what he looks for. And as we understand it, there will be a spring game. We can't finalize those details yet, but we understand that there should be a spring game. But what does Coach Benefield look for in a span of, as we said, 10 practice days plus trying to get a spring game in there? What's he look for?
Well, for the players that, were in the weight room the whole offseason, he's just wanting to get them in pads again, letting them get used to that extra weight. It makes a difference if you can put on, and those guys are growing like crazy. I mean, if they worked out right and ate right, they probably gained at least 10 pounds worth of muscle. So throwing that around in pads is different. So getting in pads, competing, anybody that wants to come out, coach encourages them to come out for spring training. So, that's when he finds out if you really want to come out or not, and be on the football team. But a lot of fundamentals. I don't want to say fall camp starts there, but it almost does. It for sure the summer session of football starts there, right? Yeah. So you do spring training, then you maybe have a 2 weeks off, 2 weeks off. If that, I don't even think it's that.
They get a week.
Right, a week off, and then they'll start summer practice. So, they lead straight into each other.
Right. And that generally ends up being that week that graduation happens, especially like this year it falls on a Monday. So it's going to be that week, and you kind of get that time. It might lead into part of the next week, just depending on when graduation falls and that kind of thing with each passing year. But as soon as that week is up, you're expected to be on campus in the weight room, preparing and putting in the work for summer. And with that said, that's kind of what Coach looks for. Drew, you've been there like 6-7 years with Coach to know all about what he expects and looks for. But JJ, as we think about what's upcoming at FYFFE over the next few weeks with the football program, you've got 6 seniors, I believe it was, departing, and a couple of them leaving on a sour note in their mouth due to injury, the way that the last season ended for them. But overall, what do you take away going into the spring? What are you looking for?
Well, I mean, obviously I'm not a coach, but coming from, knowing FYFFE football the way that I do, I think line play is first and foremost. into a 5 football team. So I think you're looking at who you're gonna, those holes that you need to plug on that offensive line, who's going to play on the defensive line. You're replacing Caden Sharp. It was a secondary linebacker, predominantly. So, who's going to take his spot? You're looking at plugging all those holes, but I think that offensive line and defensive line, which are the same people in most cases, I think it's the most important thing. Who are we going to get to fill those empty spots?
Greg, what about yourself? What kind of questions do you have about the upcoming 2024 edition of the Fife Red Devils on the football field?
Gosh, they've got so much returning. It's hard to have a whole lot of questions. And I guess you just want to make sure that they don't get complacent or cocky for that matter. You got to make sure you keep them humble, which I'm sure coach will do that. But again, you've got so many people returning at key positions. It's hard to know what to look for. Like you said, you're trying to see, again, like Drew said, how do they handle, how do they handle the new weight, because again, like he said, man, it's completely different when you start putting on some weight. You keep your speed, do you? You know how to move your body around, things along those lines. And I know it back in Householder's day, in our day, it was kind of what Drew also said. Householder, for a lot of people, he just wanted to see who wanted it. Our spring was very, very physical. Scrimmaging a whole lot of one-on-one.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a physical time.
There's not a lot of running. Not a lot of running.
No, we didn't. I don't remember, honestly, like you're saying, doing any running until about 2-3 weeks before the season started. And then we ran freaking.
They run all summer, but they do run some just to get in shape for the spring game a little bit. But biggest thing is, like you're saying, it's physical. Also, it's not about getting anybody hurt.
Yeah.
Anybody get hurt doing
I actually got to stop a practice because Barry Moses on a sweep play just about killed me, knocked me about 8 feet backwards with me breaking down, thinking I was gonna stop this blocker, and that was it. Householder was like, "Oh, that's it. Practice is over before we get somebody killed." They all liked me for that too. They congratulated me.
Well, let's. I do have a question, and I'll ask it in a moment. It's sort of a comparative question, if you will, but I want to get to another point for a moment here because, Greg, you mentioned it. There are so many key guys off of this championship team in a 2A championship returning. Of course, Logan Anderson, Tucker Wilkes, expected to be the two leaders, if you will. If you ever have to pick two guys on every football team to say these are the leaders on, it's, you kind of look at those two guys coming up, but then you also have guys like Simon Hicks that's going to be back as well. When you take a look at those types of guys, Drew, and you get those monsters returning, and not only monsters, but monsters who have been contributing not just for 1 year or 2 years, but they've been contributing really since they were 8th, 9th graders. What does that bring to the table, and how much more confidence does that give you, in particular for a season that you make the jump once again back to 3A?
Well, like you said, confidence. That's it. They've been here. They've done this spring thing. Yes, Coach Benefield will make sure that they do not get cocky. I promise you. But at the same time, there's that level of, they're kind of comfortable with it. They know it's leading up to the season. Yes, you want to have a good showing in the spring game, but a year like this, I'm not saying somebody can't come out of the woodworks and take a starting spot, but a year like this, you're really looking for depth. Who wants to get out there, second and third team, even young guys, get out there and play and compete. And that's really what you're looking for in a year like this. So we may, even if, like you mentioned, we probably will get a spring game. So even in that spring game, you may see the starters half a quarter, maybe. Those guys don't have anything to prove in a spring game.
Right.
So yes, you want them to be there. Yes, you want them to play, and they will play. All those guys that you mentioned wants to play. They'd probably want to play the whole game if he would let them, but he won't. He's not going to let them.
So I guess you might call it a comparative question, and I want all three of you to kind of chime in on this, because I was thinking about the last time Fife made the jump in 2019 to 2020. They go from 2A to 3A. And it was the first time in 20, as everybody knows, it was the first time Fife had ever moved up to the 3A classification. And the talk quickly became about you got to go through Piedmont at that point. Everybody was talking about the Piedmont Bulldogs. And if you'll remember, that was one of the instant classics of the season in that semifinal clash. Piedmont statistically outgained Fife, almost doubling them or almost tripling them up in stats, and yet Fife was able to come out victorious in the end. But I'm thinking of it in the lines of personnel, and so I had to make sure and go back and look. So in 2019, you had 7 players off the 2019 team that were named to the All-State team honors, whether it be first or second team. There were not any honorable mentions. They were straight up first or second team. That all but one returned. We all know who that one is in quarterback Zach Byron, who ended up transferring out in the spring of 20 to go to Pinson. But everybody else returned. Guys like Brody Dalton, Caleb Lyles, Eli Benefield, Ike Rowell, Justin Stiefel, Malachi Mize. Those guys returned. They were seniors in 2020, which sort of, I guess, in a way made that transition easier. Do you guys in any way see a similar situation here? I think maybe the only difference would be you kind of know what to expect going into 3A now versus then. Is this a similar situation?
Well, my question is, and I hadn't read a lot. If I'm on any social media, I guess I'm on Twitter every once in a while, but I haven't heard anybody talk about Fife having to go through anybody in 3A this time. Everybody's talking about everybody in 3A has got to go through Fife.
I don't know. Not according to that poll last week.
I was about to say
we got to get through Geraldine, Sylvania, and we do. Obviously, we have to get through those. But yeah, so
it's just not the same. It's just not the same as it was. I don't think.
Yeah,
I agree with you. I think a lot of it's because what Fife did last time. You know, again, like Adam said, it was all unknown. Are they going to be able to compete? Well, we came in and immediately showed we can compete. And then even the second year, you know, it didn't turn out obviously quite as well, but we still competed. We were still one of the top teams.
You're in the third round.
And so I think that's I think that's what makes it different now, is that now they know, you know what, jumping up to 3A isn't an insurmountable, you know, hill to climb.
Yeah.
Well, and then you know, Piedmont coming off of the previous few years, they had been dominant. I think they'd won the state championship the year before that in 19. Maybe I'm wrong on that.
Yeah, I think
you know,
you're right.
They were loaded. They were loaded, so that was the expectation. And you know, Piedmont is somewhat, I'll say, rebuilding with a new coach and you know, probably a new culture. Graduated the Jack Hayes and all those guys that were so good. So people have confidence in Fife because of the track record, right? Now it's like, okay, 3A didn't phase them. So,
but and here's my question to you, Adam. Who do they got to play? Who do you think?
You mean in regular season or just overall?
Who do you have to make it through? Who would we have to make it through in the playoff?
Well, you know,
is it Sylvania graduating 12 and a new coach, or is it Geraldine graduating 16? Are those the two? Is that it?
I think Geraldine would have the advantage over Geraldine would have the advantage over Sylvania in that regard because they still have the same head coach and Michael Davis. I know him; he's a friend. He's a very young, energetic type of coach, and young kids today they feed off of that type of coach, and they feed off a coach that can get energetic and get hyped up. You guys were with me. We walked over to the locker room that year after they beat Fife. 21, that was Davis's first year, and we walked over and we're just going to congratulate him, and we kind of had to wait in the wings a moment, and because he was doing his thing in the locker room with the kids, and he was hyping them, and it's a totally different approach than what Coach Benefield gives his kids, and the Fife kids respond to that because it's established. If it were somebody else, a brand new coach with Coach Benefield's mindset trying to come into Fife, I don't know that it would play well anymore. But Coach Benefield's plays well because he's been there. So I think Geraldine would have the advantage over Sylvania in that regard, only because Michael Davis is now kind of established, if you will. Sylvania doesn't have that established coach yet. But as far as outside of the county, outside of the region, Mars Hill might be that team. I mean, they beat a very good Scottsboro team last year in what was a classic shootout. And now Scottsboro is going to be running what Sylvania has been running the last several years under Tyler Van, now that he's taken over at Scottsboro. But Mars Hill, everything stays the same essentially.
Well,
I
I'm not.
don't know how much they're graduating, but
Yeah, that's no disrespect to any team in 3A.
No.
That's not what I mean.
No.
I just
Not at all.
you don't with such of a shakeup. You don't know. We don't know. You know what I mean? We don't know who's going to be good. We don't know who may come out of the woodwork and have. I mean, Locust Fork had the first 10-0 season in their whole entire football history last year in 2A. So
yeah, and
there may
that's
be a team
one
like that even.
That's one that we haven't really discussed a whole lot of, and so that bring us to a point we can talk about it for a second. In that Locust Fork returns Dylan Embry, and if you gentlemen will remember, I texted you guys on that Thursday after I spoke with Coach Benefield before we even had played the game. Coach Benefield made the comment to me, Greg, that he believed the two players that should be up for the back of the year in 2A were going to be on that field that Friday night in Logan Anderson and Dylan Embry, and he's back. And we saw what he could do. He was very dangerous and very elusive against FYFFE. He caused a lot of problems.
I wouldn't disagree with Coach Benfield on that. One of those two guys could have won that easily. And again, and they also moved up to 3A too. They'd been at 3A before a couple. I think the last 2 years were the first time they were down in 2A in a long, long time.
Yeah,
they've been. If I'm not mistaken, again, it's not been that long when they were actually a 4A school.
I think you're right.
They are, accustomed to playing the 3A games, no doubt about that.
Well, in that region, their region, yes, it sounds tough. I mean, Glencoe, JB Pennington, Locust Fork, Ohatchee, Piedmont, Sachs, Walter Weber, and Weaver, Westbrook. But Piedmont's not what they were. Ohatchee's not what they were. Westbrook has Piedmont's old coach. So
I have a question too. I haven't looked at any of the arrangements or alignments this year. Is Gordo in the south or the north this year? Does anybody know?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I haven't even looked at that.
I think they're in the north.
I know they have been the last couple of years, which I still don't understand. But
their region is Carbon Hill, Gordo, Huntsville, Midfield, Oakman, Phil Campbell, Vinemont, and Winfield.
Gotcha.
That's north.
I was going to say that puts them in the north then.
Region 5.
Yeah.
Gordo.
Well, the one thing I'll say is as we kind of bring it all together before we move on is that in thinking about like going back to that comparative question that I had, the 20 team versus this upcoming 24 team, how fortunate is Coach Benefield and the FYFFE Red Devils to be moving up back into 3A, much like what they did in 20, and it's not a young team. It's not having to replace guys at nearly every position, much like in 20, where I read off the list, two of those guys off that 7-man list I named are still playing college football. There, and in fact, Brody Dalton just had T-Day or Trojan Day, whatever they call it down there at Troy. He just had his spring practice wrap up over the weekend. How fortunate, JJ, is FYFFE to be able to go into the 2024 campaign in 3A? Some new names out there as far as on the schedule, what potential guys like we were talking about you might have to go through, but still you bring a battle-tested crew back.
Well, that's it in a nutshell. Battle tested. Drew alluded to it. They've been through off season. They've been through spring. They've been through the fall, getting ready. They've been in big games. They played on big stages. As long as they stay grounded, and I think I agree with Drew. He'll find a way. Coach Benefield will find a way to keep them grounded. It's experience matters in this age of, one and dones and going in, just moving on to the next, the younger talent and stuff. But experience matters.
Yeah.
These guys, and they don't get rattled very easy. And most of them, like you said, they've been contributing now for 3 or 4 years, 3+ years. And, it's huge going into, a 3A classification with new opponents or old opponents, but in a different context. But yeah, it means everything really to go in experience like this. Because another thing, they're way, not only are they experienced, but physically they're way more mature, stronger than they were the year before. Drew alluded to that. They might, in some cases, pack on 10 pounds of muscle. There's a big difference in a 15-year-old kid and a 17-year-old kid in most cases. So that means a lot.
Yeah. Let's move on to the NFL draft recap. And Drew, we'll start with you on this one. We sort of had this conversation, the other three of us did, in last week's episode. I want to ask you, was Caleb Williams inevitably, no matter what, the number one overall pick to the Chicago Bears? Was that inevitable?
Yeah. I mean, it was him, and I'll tell you why. Too many people were scared to lose their job if they didn't get him because of the talent. Because of the talent. But if you look at the attitude, he's not a winner. Yeah. I don't care about.
He has a Heisman.
That don't make you a winner. RG3 won the Heisman.
Played on an average team.
I mean, Drake May was the number 3 pick. He's on North Carolina. That's a bunch of losers. Just like Sam Howell. Not throwing stones at their character at all. But they're not winners. There's a difference between players that are winners, like Baker Mayfield. I know character is iffy, if at best. But dude's a winner.
Like it or not.
He's a winner.
Andrew, we were talking about this last week. The fact is, if you're as much of a talent as they've made Caleb Williams out to be, and that he's made himself out to be, you're able to raise that USC team to a playoff berth.
You would think.
You're not a mediocre average team,
right.
And that's what they were. He's an average player on an average team, a good player on an average team, just like Anthony Richardson the year before. All of a sudden, he came out of nowhere. He's an unreal talent. Now, he did show flashes that short season that he got to play for Indianapolis, but the fact is, he quarterbacked a below average Florida team.
Well, and people are always going to talk about outliers, right? So outliers would be Patrick Mahomes. Did nothing in college. Sure, he's probably one of the better quarterbacks in NFL history. I didn't say best. Better. But who is the best? Who is the best quarterback in NFL history?
Well, some folks are going to put TB12 up there as we
Tom
start
Brady.
losing the two
It's
guys
Tom
on the
Brady.
bottom.
Come on, it's Tom Brady. But where did he get drafted?
Yeah, he was in the 6th round.
But he's a winner. That's what I'm saying. That's why we'll talk about the picks later. Yeah. But I just don't – sometimes I just don't understand. Like, I get it. These scouts are so afraid to miss on the talent that they miss everything else.
Mm-hmm. I don't understand the evaluation.
That's all the first round is. It's just pure talent. I get it. You know what I mean? Like, maybe if I was in the industry, I would understand more, I guess. But I want winners. I don't care. You know, I want guys that I know are going to show up and do their job.
Yeah.
Every time, every play. And like the Titans.
Yeah.
I cannot – the 2nd round pick, Sweat from Texas. I cannot stand that pick. That is an awful pick. Dude got arrested a month ago in Austin for drunk driving.
Yeah. And I'm going to tell you, they're not going to change.
And they won't change.
No, what they're doing right now is what they're going to – if they're already acting that way, they're going to be a problem.
And that's a premier pick, 2nd round pick.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've lost G Money. I don't know where he's gone to, but hopefully he'll get back in the conversation with us in a moment as we continue to move forward talking about the NFL draft. So we kind of agree that was inevitable, although it might not necessarily be for the talent reason as G Money is back with us. Caleb Williams.
I never left, baby.
The inevitable number 1 overall pick to the Chicago Bears. We all know Greg's feeling on it. Now let me give you my feeling on a certain number 8 overall pick. I still do not understand as the Falcons are going to Falcon. And more times than not, I've watched the draft, I don't know how many years in a row, and I've even got my wife involved over the last several years, getting invested in at least Thursday nights, round one, watching it, sitting with me and kind of trying to enjoy it a little bit. Rarely do the Falcons, in a fan's opinion, okay, a fan's opinion. I'm going to say it like Drew. I'm not in the business. Maybe I'm just not smart enough and don't understand. But I have checked out, I've read, I've listened to many different opinions and takes on it. I do not understand taking Michael Penix Jr. overall and the 8th spot when you just signed Kirk Cousins to a 4-year, $180 million deal. That's a 9-figure salary. Now, I get it. The deal is front loaded for the first 2 years. Most of his guaranteed money is coming in the first 2 years of his contract, and he's 36. I understand. I get that aspect of it. And I don't have a problem with Michael Penix Jr. I think the kid can play. Don't get me wrong. I do have questions about his health, much like everybody wants to throw the stones of health at Kirk Cousins. Michael Penix Jr., remember, has had not one, but 2 major surgeries on his knee. That's one more than Kirk Cousins has had. One on his shoulder. He was at Indiana before he came to Washington, followed his old offensive coordinator to Washington. So, the other part of it is he's 24. By the time he plays, he'll be 26, 27 years old. He's not a guy that's going to help you win in 2024. You could have gone on the defensive side of the ball. That's another thing that scratches my head, that there was not a defensive pick until pick 15?
15.
How in the world, guys, and I know not everybody here's a Falcons fan. There's got 2 Dolphins fan and a Titans fan on here, as well as myself being a Falcons fan, but I know you guys were scratching your heads as well to some degree with that. Give me your take. Why pick a quarterback at 8 when you could have gone defense and possibly gotten a quarterback a little later in the draft for less money?
Here's my take. I got 2. One, the Falcons are not going to be good until that owner sells them. I think
Arthur Blank.
I think the owner had a lot to do with that pick, from what I read. Because he liked him. He liked the kid a lot. But good for him, but you need to sell a team. 2, as far as Thursday night NFL draft doing, 32 pick. If I wanted to watch 32 picks in 3 rounds, I'd watch reruns of Auburn's offense last year. 32 picks in 3 hours. Come on. 3 hours? No.
Oh,
Yes,
ye of little attention span. I remember when it was either 15 or 20 minutes. The first night, you didn't even get through the first round. This thing went on into Saturday and Sunday before they got through with it. I mean, it was horrible watching it. I mean, seriously, it was 15 minutes between picks, and it would just drag on and drag on. It doesn't bother
me.
It bothers me.
Well, hey, frankly, it's not the NFL on that one. It's the media doing all that, trying to sell all the
and Detroit. It was a great environment. Don't get me wrong. Detroit was awesome.
And
the fans came out.
Turned it into a spectacle. Yeah,
it surprised me.
Now,
if you didn't,
I think it surprised everybody.
If you didn't watch the Pat McAfee or the short from the Pat McAfee show where they started yelling "Go Lions" and he had a Packers fan on, go watch it. I can't repeat it.
Yeah. So Roger Goodell was on Pat McAfee show as well, and he were talking about how they were forced out of Radio City Music Hall because of a scheduling thing, and they'd already debated on taking the show on the road, and he said he never imagined it would be like this, and he said that bidding now for the NFL draft is as strong and competitive as bidding to host the Super Bowl.
I believe it.
So
I'm sure it's a lot easier to host too.
Yeah. So could I go ahead, since I'm talking? I want to talk about this pick. So the Falcons had valued, according to their brass or whatever, they had Michael Penix Jr. rated as a 2nd quarterback overall in their mind as they rated quarterbacks. Now how they come to that conclusion, I don't know. And from what I've heard, they felt like, hey, this is a good opportunity to get this highly rated quarterback at this moment, and thinking that he could play down the road. Well, Adam, you already said he's 24 years old. If he sets 4 years, he's 28. Now he still could have a 12-year career, a successful 12-year career. But here's the thing that's different now about football in the NFL versus 20 years ago. They can sign that kid on a rookie deal, and then when it gets to the point where we don't know if he's going to be our starter, but Cousins is gone, now you got to pay the guy. Now he's out of that rookie deal. Now are you going to pay him? Are you going to pay him Kirk Cousins money? Are you going to pay him whatever the market is on an unproven prospect? I like Michael Penix, and I think I think he may be actually be a good quarterback if he can stay healthy. He may be better than the ones picked ahead of him because he actually did get his team to the national championship game.
He's pro ready. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. So he's experienced. Here's what I don't know. It's weird to pay a bridge quarterback, if you want to call Kirk Cousins a bridge, to pay him the amount of money. I think it's complete dysfunction in that organization. And I don't know if y'all heard Michael Lombardi, who had actually worked with Bill Belichick, worked for Al Davis. He tore them a new one over that pick. And it wasn't about Penix and his talent. It was about what you need versus what you got. Yeah. I'm glad I gave up on the Falcons in the Super Bowl that year. So I'm done with them.
Hey,
I'll just
listen.
I'll just continue to suffer as a Dolphins fan.
Yeah.
All the
I don't
talent.
want to hear anything about.
We'll win a playoff game again one day.
Greg, all the talent in the world on the offensive side of the ball. You just drafted Bijan Robinson last year. Earlier today, on Monday, recording this as this premieres, by the way, in May. By the time this hits the air, it'll be May. But all the talent in the world, you drafted Bijan last year. You've picked up on Monday Kyle Pitts, 5th-year option at tight end. You drafted Drake London a couple of years ago, who this past season finally started to show what he can be capable of. He's far from hitting his prime, but he's well on his way. You've got this, I think it was Drew, help me out, the second best offensive line in the NFL last year. Is that right?
I don't know as far as the numbers. I know they had 3 Pro Bowlers.
Yeah. So you've got all the weapons in the world, and including bringing in, you could call him a bridge quarterback. I don't care. Kirk Cousins has evolved into one of the better quarterbacks in the league still. I know he's coming off an ACL tear. I know he hasn't won a Super Bowl yet or whatever, but think about what he did with the Vikings and how the heights that he took the Vikings to that they've not been to in a long time. You've got an experienced offense. Your defense is where you need, for lack of a better word, some dead gum good help, and they did nothing to give themselves at least on the first 2 days.
Do y'all remember when? So, go ahead, Dal.
That was Michael Lombardi's point. Is that you draft according to your need, and they didn't need offensively. They're set. They need edge rusher. They need 3 technique. They need some of those guys, and they passed up on Dallas Turner.
They went and got some of those guys in the later rounds, but
there were better options available.
I'm with you. I think they should have probably picked them. I mean, in the second round, they went and got a defensive tackle from Clemson, and then third round they went and got an edge rusher from Washington. So, and they addressed some of those needs, but not with the best players.
No.
So you could say this. You may have Kirk Cousins running out on the Mercedes-Benz Dome turf opening day carrying the American flag.
Oh, shut up. Shut up.
5 plays later, he may have been on the turf, and now you got a guy who's pro-ready, played in a pro-style offense experience. So, I mean, they may look like geniuses, and we all may look like fools. You never know.
True.
Go ahead, Greg.
All right. I got a bunch of stuff for you. First off, as to why they picked him, obviously they think he's a generational talent. They think they got a Pat Mahomes or somebody they couldn't pass on. Not very smart, I agree. The reason why they didn't go defense, y'all remember the old Major League Baseball promo stuff back when McGuire and Sosa were battling it out on the home run chase?
Yeah.
Chicks dig the long ball. chicks dig offense. It sells tickets.
Yeah,
and it
it's
is.
true.
That's part of it, man. Defense is not sexy anymore.
Well,
But here's the most amazing thing to me, not really about this pick, but this pick's an overall. These are the smartest football minds in the world, right? These guys know football. Their hit rate on quarterbacks, their hit rate on quarterbacks is less than 20%. You know, Drew was talking about RG3. It's RG3. It's Matt Leinart. It's Johnny Manziel. It's Tim Couch, Jake Locklear. I mean, the list goes on and on. These guys can't miss.
Well,
and like I said, Jamarcus Russell.
Trevor Lawrence's draft.
Trevor, all these guys. When is the last one really that they said this dude is it? That really was good, but
Trevor.
None of them.
No,
maybe Peyton
Andrew Luck.
But
he got hurt.
Yeah,
and that's it. Him and Manning. That's about it.
Yeah, the rest
they just cannot. Cannot hit. They don't hit well on any of them. But quarterback, they're just throwing darts up at the wall and hoping something sticks.
Well, the Bears, they thought Justin Fields was fantastic. Only a few years
ago. And Trubisky before
him away for a sixth-round pick. Yeah. Well, you're not very smart.
Yeah, and
I'm
now
like
Fields
Drew. I want winners.
And now Fields is going to have to battle it out with Russell Wilson to be the starting quarterback in Pittsburgh.
I would love nothing more than to see Justin Fields light the world up for Pittsburgh.
Yeah. I think it would be hilarious if Chicago makes the playoffs and Justin Fields and the Steelers make it.
It'd be the best thing ever. Sorry, Greg.
No. I'm just thinking Bears in general. You go Mitch Trubisky. You go. I can't think of the guy's name from
any
Vanderbilt.
Quarterback they've ever picked.
Any quarterback, yeah.
Jay Cutler.
Yeah, Jay Cutler. The dude,
Rex
sexy
Grossman.
Rex
Grossman.
Grossman.
Jay Cutler.
I mean, have they ever?
Jay Cutler looks like he's high all the time.
He may be.
Am I the only one that sees that every time I see him on anything?
He played like it.
There's a story out there about Jay Cutler, and it's a true story. I can't remember who reported it or something, but he was in Nashville, and he was just he'd been having some adult beverages and was in a bathroom, and some guy come up to him basically and said, "Man, Jay Cutler, I watched you play at Vanderbilt. I think you're fantastic. Love you in Chicago." And they said that Cutler looked over at him just in a stupor and went, "I don't care."
So
fantastic guy.
Sticking with the draft, did you guys happen to catch Nick Saban making his official debut as an official media member now on College Game Day, which started on ESPN, and when the draft started, they switched it over to ABC or went solely on ABC. It might have been on both at the time. I don't know. But did you guys happen to see that? And first of all, your takes on it. I'll simply start it by saying I thought he had some of the best takes, and I thought he was one of the most prepared analysts I've ever seen for a draft. And not necessarily looking at guys like Mel Kiper and oh gosh, what's his name? The blonde-headed guy. I can't think of it.
Todd McShay.
Todd McShay. Thank you. Because those guys, that's what they do all year round. They look at draft picks all year long. But I thought Nick Saban was better prepared than almost anybody else, whether it's ESPN, Fox, whomever, covering the draft. He sounded like he had been studying for months on these guys.
He probably had.
He had to study for months on those guys. They might have been
some of them he's playing. Portal. Yeah.
Well, and
here's the one thing too.
I think it's hilarious that every time there was a pick announced, and anybody from ESPN was like, "Oh, I don't like this pick," Nick Saban turned around and be like, "I like this guy," and then everybody would just be, "Oh, this guy's awesome. This guy." Blah, blah.
That's the difference in having a football guy, that just came out of football versus Kirk Herbstreit.
Yeah,
they got the Bama bump no matter what. Get to put up a little bit.
Well,
but the other thing, he wasn't afraid to poo-poo on people either if he saw something wrong with them or something that they needed to do. And again, it was never, to me, from what I heard, it was never really personal. It's like, hey, this guy needs to develop. There's three kind of rushes. This guy needs to develop his bull rush to be really successful. And he said one thing too that made so much sense to me about, and I think it was from the guy from Georgia, the offensive lineman.
Yeah,
that everybody's talked about so much, was about him playing in smaller schools. You know, he played small high school football, and how different that is going up and going into college. And now all of a sudden, you're not just the biggest guy pushing everybody around.
Yeah.
And then he just talked about how he was going to even make a bigger jump now from college to pros is that much more of a jump than it is from high school to college. And
Well,
again, to me, he was just telling the truth about everything, things that
and he
people are afraid to say.
He mentioned that, he kind of took himself out of the SEC championship game and didn't come back.
Yeah.
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 15 plays in and he was gone.
And how many games did he end up starting for Georgia? I remember seeing that pick, and
I have to look.
I have no clue how you draft people. Like, case in point, San Francisco 49ers drafted, I don't even remember his name now. He's a backup quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. Well, they drafted him at quarterback.
Trevor Lawrence. Not Trevor Lawrence.
Trey Lance.
Trey Lance.
For Trey Lance for North Dakota State. And you thought he was that good to trade up. It's stupid. When I saw that pick, that Georgia offensive lineman, I was like, are you kidding? Really?
Yeah.
You're going to pick him that high?
Yeah.
So good. I was Saban, as far as I think he's having the time of his life.
I agree.
It's nice to see. It's nice to see somebody who spent his, life grinding like that. And when that's all some people have problem changing. Now it's different.
Yep.
He looks like he's adjusting well to retirement. He's got plenty to do. He brings a lot to the table. Well, he makes ESPN a lot more credible. I'll put it this way, with him working for him. And so it was nice to see him smiling, being able to do what he does, and he's very articulate and he does a great job. So I think it's going to bring a lot to game day as well.
Yeah, I'll say this too, to your point. I feel like every time I see him now on whether it's a feature or he's live on ESPN or whatever he's doing, he looks refreshed. He looks like he got the best night's sleep he's ever had in his life, or at least in the last 50 years of coaching. So I wholeheartely agree. My only thing is, why can't little Debbie get this man a free box of oatmeal cream pies?
I know.
For goodness sake, he ate one
I agree.
live on television the other night. He ate one live, and they still in all these years.
Yeah.
You guys remember that commercial they did several years ago where Chris Fowler, Kirk Herbstreit were in his office, and he dropped one on the floor and he picked it up and ate it anyway. And they pretended like they didn't notice. They were like, oh, well, that's kind of nasty. How did he not get a free box of Little Debbie oatmeal cream pies off of that? How is he
They'll
not
be backing up a truck.
Well,
They'll be backing up a truck in Florida here real soon. That $17 million mansion is going to be full of Little Debbie's.
Yeah,
Hey,
Collegedale's not far from here. I dare say they'll be loading up some.
New Orleans is going to get a truck backed up to it too. Did you guys also see the announcement that finally the brand Kool-Aid that makes you get the powdered drink, whatever, they finally named a flavor after Kool-Aid McKinstry, who was drafted to the New Orleans Saints. We'll talk about that in a moment, but and I'm just repeating the name of it, folks. I don't know if it's on the nose.
I know where you're going.
I know where you're going. The flavor is called Blackberry Blitz. I don't know if that's a little on the nose or not, but listen, my wife hates anything artificial cherry. And when I told her that, A, she thought I was making it up. I'm like, no, it's real. B, I told her, I said, I'm going to try it at the very least. I like Kool-Aid. I like when new flavors come out, I try them. And she said, I'm not going to try that. I'm not going to try that. But then she kind of looked at me and she said, wait, did you say they called that black cherry? I went, yes, I know. They did. But going back to Nick Saban for a second before we move on, this was the final draft class that he will ever have as long as he stays retired. And it resulted in 10 picks. I'm going to run down this list very quickly here. It started with Drew's Titans making what I thought was a very good pick in J.C. Latham, round 1, number 7 overall. In fact, the pick before my Falcons. Dallas Turner, an edge player, went to the Minnesota Vikings in round 1, number 17 pick. Cornerback Terrion Arnold, as Nick Saban said live on the air, that is Miss Terry's most favorite person on this past team. Terrion Arnold went to the Detroit Lions at the 24th overall pick. As we mentioned, Kool-Aid McKinstry at cornerback went to New Orleans as the number 41 overall pick in round 2. Edge rusher Chris Braswell went to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, round 2, pick number 57. Wide receiver Jermaine Burton. I was a little surprised by this pick, just as high as he went. Jermaine Burton goes to the Cincinnati Bengals in round 3, pick number 80. Defensive lineman Justin Aboigbe went to the LA Chargers in round 4, pick 105. Jace McClellan went to the as a running back, went to the Atlanta Falcons, round 6, pick 186. Will Reichert, the NCAA all-time scoring leader, and somehow got snubbed for the Lou Groza Award, went to the Minnesota Vikings in round 6, pick 203. And at safety, Mr. Jalen Key went to the New York Jets, round 7, pick number 257, pick 257. And by the way, that also makes him Mr. Irrelevant. The last time there was a Mr. Irrelevant, kind of worked out for a guy named Brock Purdy making the Super Bowl. So you're 10 guys there on that gets picked from Nick Saban's last team at Alabama. I don't have the numbers in front of me on how many total draft picks he had during his time just alone at Alabama, but for me, that is an impressive feat. And to be able to watch Coach Saban, guys, every time one of those guys' names got called out, they put a little camera on him and showed his reaction. He was genuinely happy for those guys, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was that's a life-changing thing for these guys. I mean, there's been Alabama players that haven't panned out. They didn't end up performing at the level that we've seen them come and go. But they got to the league, which is most of these kids. That's their goal, is to get to the league. After that, it's up to them. And he's got to have a great sense of satisfaction and pride, knowing that all these kids that have came through his program that put that work in, ended up achieving a goal, and in some cases, earn, generational wealth, through that process. I'll tell you this, and I was thinking about this, the success to me, and this is without me looking up stats or knowing numbers. I think his hit rate for Saban Alabama graduates, I think is higher for secondary players. I think there's a lot of misses on the offensive line. I know there's been some good offensive linemen. And with that being said, I think picking J.C. Latham at high was a mistake. They were talking about it. Talking about, well, if they'd have run behind Latham against Michigan, that play might have scored. They were showing film, and one of the comments was, well, it's because he got blown up. And I've still got a picture saved on my phone of him getting his rear end handed to him, falling on his backside. I think he's overrated. The Titans are moving away from running the football like they did with Derrick Henry. We'll see. I'm not Mel Kiper. I'm not an expert. I think he's overrated. He didn't do anything.
Somebody asked me what I thought. I'm okay. I'm okay with it. I would have liked Joe Alt. Obviously, he got picked by the Chargers. Good smoke screen by the Chargers.
Yeah.
Everybody thought they were going quarterback, went offensive line. So, but I'm okay with it because I really don't think, because there was really 3 offensive linemen there that are about the same. The guy from Oregon State, I can't say his name, and the one from Penn State, J.C. Latham. So, I mean, if you're the Titans, you had to address the offensive line. Of those 3, I'm okay with them picking Latham because who do you pick other than that? You don't need a quarterback. You don't need a receiver.
Yeah.
You really got to do something with the offensive line. Do I think they could have traded back probably and still got a good offensive lineman? Yes. Yeah. That's why I don't like it. But with the need across the league, I'm okay with.
Yeah. Well, the overall hit rate is higher for offensive linemen. We talked about the hit rate. Greg mentioned that with quarterbacks. It's higher for guards and centers overall. Than it is for tackles and things of that nature. So,
JC doesn't. They're going to have him play left tackle, which at Alabama they make him work on both. But he started primarily at right tackle, so it'll be interesting. The Titans pick from last year, Peter Skoronsky, I think is how you say his name, is the left guard. So that left side will be awful young.
Greg, here's my question. As Drew gave a pretty nice response there, being the Titans fan on this crew. Here's my question to you: this list of 10 names here, we saw how the season started for Alabama versus the way that it ended. And in spite of not making it to the national championship, like what the expectation is every year, there's no denying that there was a dramatic team improvement from especially that. I'm not even going to point at the Texas game. I'll point to the game after at South Florida, because that was a horrendous showing. The Texas showing was much better than the USF showing. There was a tremendous upswing from this 2023 Crimson Tide team that, had that not happened, are there 10 names that I just read off? Are there 10 names from Alabama getting picked if it wasn't for that upswing?
Well, I doubt it. There still probably would have been 6 or 7, but this could be honestly Saban's one of his best coaching years that he had. Because, like you said, I think they were on the verge of losing that team at the South Florida game. Now, I don't know what was going on, whether he was not starting Milroe to show everybody, hey, I know what I'm doing starting this kid, or did he have a bad attitude? But they were on the verge. That South Florida game could have went either way. And if you lose that game, then, oh, my gosh, he's going to go out and everybody's going to just toast him. Because as fans, we have short memories. And I hope we remember that we just saw something very, very special, and that this will probably never be, duplicated again. And you see those 10 players, and I think it was 46 first-round picks, if I'm not mistaken. And again, like you, JJ, I don't remember what it is overall, but it's a tremendous number. These last 17 years of Alabama football have been glorious. I mean, I'm so glad I got to live through them, because I lived through some bad times too. I just hope that's how we remember.
Auburn has had 20 first-round picks in the history of the NFL draft. Alabama has had 21 since 2019.
Yeah. Hey, did y'all see that? I don't know if it was a GIF or a meme, but it was number of draft picks from the Auburn Tigers 2024, and then it panned down. It was a picture of a nun. Get it?
That was just in the first. There was. I had it pulled up a second ago. There was five. There was 5 Auburn players that got picked. Nehemiah Pritchett went to Seattle. Jalen Simpson went to the Colts. DJ James went to Seattle. Justin Rogers went to Dallas, and then Marcus Harris went to Houston.
Well, at one point, it was Yale 1 draft pick, Auburn 0. So Yale was winning at one point.
That's right. I had a friend post a picture of whoever wore 0 for Auburn last year.
And that was the number of picks.
Yeah, he just posted a picture. That's all he had to say. So,
hey, maybe next week we hit on Auburn.
Sorry.
Maybe next week we hit on Auburn and see if see what our thoughts are on their upcoming draft picks for this next go round in 2025. Let's move forward to a segment we haven't done in a few weeks. It's kind of been melded into everything, but literally on the prep sheet I put, let's hit whatever you guys want. It's the infamous "What's on Your Mind?" 10 minutes of crap. Oh, I hadn't done that in a minute. I hadn't sung in a minute for the fine folks. They probably wished I never would again. Guys, I have no idea. So let's take just a minute each here. What's on your mind, Greg? You're the one that's sticking out to me. I pick you. Let's start. What's on your mind?
I guess as much as I hate this transfer portal stuff and people moving around, man, I'm taking a look at what Nate Oates is doing down there at Bama right now, and it kind of scares me because right now we have the number 2 recruiting class behind Duke because of some of the transfers. The kid that's coming in from Kansas now. And if he gets a strong number 5, man, if we don't go back to the Final Four, I'm going to be disappointed. And you can't say that being an Alabama basketball fan, but my gosh, have you seen that lineup? And again, go ahead. Because, I mean, I've seen some good players.
The most talented roster that Alabama basketball's ever had. I'm not saying they're going to win. I'm just saying
it's pretty darn close because
in general.
Robert Horry and Derek McKee and those guys were all really good.
Yeah.
And now the question is going to be, and for you, JJ, maybe not the style, but just the coaching ability. How do you get all these superstars to play together? You only got one ball.
Yeah.
And you love to shoot it. How does he coach and get these teams to gel? Because talent-wise, I mean, it's top 5 talent in the nation.
Yeah.
So that's always the question. And that's the first thing I thought about when I saw kind of the rundown of the players that are coming back. the roster, and I thought, gosh, how's he going to get all these guys minutes? Because they on paper they all look like they need to be playing. The other thing is I've seen it, and if you're replacing 2 spots on that basketball floor, 2 starters, it can completely. You think, well, you got 3 starters coming back or whatever. It shouldn't be that hard. Yeah, it is. To get them to mesh and to play cohesively as a unit, to defend is going to be the big question. Are you going to defend? Are you going to play like you did, toward the end of last year that got them to the Final Four? So that's going to be the big question. That's going to be his test as a coach to me, is now what's your rotation going to look like? Are you going to find that rotation early, late? Or are you going to have to work through it all season? I think it'll play itself out. I think there'll be a lot of trial and error.
They have every opportunity to be 12 deep.
Yeah.
And
with that being said, and I'll hush on this subject, the pace that they want to play with and the aggression that he's expecting on defense, if you could go 10 deep, if you can go that deep on your roster and there's not a drop off, there is zero excuse for the 5 that are on the floor not to lay it all out there and give 100% while they're out there, because they know they're going to get a break. And if you could cycle in, if you could go 10 deep, and you could get guys out there, i.e. buckyball, and they're playing wide open, and they're pressing, putting pressure on the basketball, playing with a lot of effort, a lot of energy for 5-6 minutes at a time, and you're getting a break. They're going to be hard to deal with especially with that level of talent.
I got to call a timeout and throw a flag here on JJ because he said he would never mention buckyball again. I just like to go ahead and throw the flag.
Throw that
Let's get
flag.
the replay.
But that's
blow the whistle.
but that's
I agree.
the way
That's
a lot
absolutely
of
right.
these teams. Yeah,
I think with basketball and
there's-
JJ, this is your sport more than ours by far. It's a lot more important in basketball for these guys to know what their role is. You have truly role players. You're even your starting 5, the 3rd and 4th guy out there, they have a role. They got to be able to play within that role and not want to be, the superstar point guard or the guy taking the shot. Yeah.
Case in point, LeBaron Fallon played at Baker, 7A school. He was the man in Alabama basketball.
35 points a game.
For a couple of 30 million.
And he starts glitching on us, folks.
What everybody else on that team, everybody else on that team was the man on their high school team.
Yep.
So how are you going to temper that? Like you said, Greg, how are you going to get everybody to understand? Everybody's got a piece, a role, and live up to it, and not be selfish with the basketball. Because all it takes is 1 player, 2 players to become selfish, and not fall into the kind of the team philosophy, and then you got problems. So
I think we saw that 3 years ago.
We
did. Went out first round.
We'll see what kind of coach. We'll see what kind of coach for real Nate Oates is managing all that talent.
So 10 seconds on this to round out this point. Then Drew, I'm coming to you for what's on your mind. 10 seconds for each of you on this point. My question is, with making the run to the Final Four, if Alabama had, say, been knocked out in the Sweet 16, how much did that run affect recruiting? Do we still get the recruits that we've seen the last few weeks? Or Greg's making the money sign. Is it a money thing, or does the Final Four run drastically help? Well, I mean, at college basketball, like college football, has changed so much. How much does that Final Four run help to see the great recruiting that we've seen? 10 seconds or less. Greg, go ahead.
Final Four definitely helped. Kentucky coming after him and him asking for nothing but NIL money. And he's spending that extra NIL money very, very wisely.
Just needs Cliff.
Yep.
Yeah.
The big red dog.
Agreement.
Big red dog.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm in
Drew,
agreement.
take off with it. What's on your mind?
Well, I'll stick with some football. Did y'all get to see any of the USFL Stallions game this weekend?
Yes.
I saw Martinez go off. I saw the highlights. I didn't get to watch the game, but I saw the highlights.
Yeah.
Martinez
Roll
went off.
Tide. Hey, Drew,
Yeah.
giddy up. Giddy
Yeah.
up.
That's right. Hey, here's my question.
No.
Here's my question for real. So the Stallions play the Battlehawks the May 11th.
3 o'clock.
Are we going?
I wish. I have
Me
birthday
too,
stuff with my
man.
wife. You guys take off and go, but I've got birthday stuff with my wife.
Well, I'll say this: the Stallions put a hurting on the Roughnecks. It's 32-9 was the final. Adrian Martinez needs to be the starter for the rest of the year. I like Matt Corral, but he ain't got it this year.
Nope.
And Scooby
no.
Wright, have a good retirement. Peace.
I can't believe we watched his last play.
We did. 3 rows up.
Yeah, we did. Yep, 3 rows up.
And then
Watch him kick those shoulder pads.
On the sideline.
Yeah, I was going to say.
So here's what I
Watch
really
him
want
kick
to
those
talk
shoulder
about.
pads.
Do you guys actually think the USFL has any chance of ever putting up any kind of fight in general, period, with the NFL? Or is it just a blip on the radar?
I'm going to say no to the first part of that, but I will say I don't think it's just a blip on the radar. I think these last few years with all this experimenting with what was the XFL, and then you had whatever that league was with that had the Birmingham Iron that didn't even make it a full season.
AFL.
I think a lot of the experimenting over the last few years has proven to be honest, to be somewhat of an advantage to see what not to do, how to better do things, even things that were being done well. How can we be better at those things? I actually like this combined product this year. I have watched some of the games. I've watched some of them on replay, but I've watched them and I have found them quite enjoyable. And I'm going, you know what? I kind of like this as much as I like sitting and watching a Falcons game when I get to. Right now, most of the time the Falcons start playing, I'm still in church or towards the end of it there. But so I miss part of those games. But I'm like, I rather enjoy this. And a lot of these kids, these are not some guys that they went and got from other countries who are just trying to make a name for themselves and trying to find the back door into the league. These are guys that you still know from their college playing days, that some of them are big name guys. You mentioned Scooby Wright a moment ago. AJ McCarron's been talked about on this podcast with the St. Louis Battlehawks, and he's the starting quarterback again after getting a chance late last season to go back to the Cincinnati Bengals. And guys like that who, they're not making NFL money. They're, in this league, you're never going to make NFL money. I don't think it'll ever compete with it, but I think in this league you have guys who still want to show and put it out there that I've still got it, that I've still got the heart to do this versus all these other leagues that you just had some guys going through the motions. I think this league could survive. I think there's things to improve on, but I do think this thing has a leg to stand on because it's in the spring.
So here's my question.
A couple things.
Here's another one. When y'all ain't, and then I'll let you go, Greg. With what we've seen in the G League and the success that minor league baseball's having, do you?
You just stole my thunder.
Yeah. Do you ever think the NFL would consider buying the UFL and using it as like their G League?
I'd say yes. That was one of the points I was going to go with, Drew. I think so, especially the way college football is now with all the movement and all that stuff. I think it's going to become a developmental league. Maybe instead of having a practice squad, you'll have a UFL team that you draw from when you have an injury or you're trying to develop somebody. And so that actually was what I was going to ask, that question. The other thing
practice squad players don't play anybody. Why not let them play?
Yeah. Let them get some thing. The other thing I was going to say, Adam, you enjoy watching this UFL so much because as a Falcon fan, you're actually probably watching a better product on the field.
If you're hey, so I actually thought about this, and I think this is a pipe dream. I think what you guys just mentioned would be the most logical thing, and I do think they do have support from the NFL, at least not literally, but they're not, they're not trying to compete with them.
They're not in competition. Yeah, they're not trying to ruin it.
The mistake the original USFL made in the 80s that I really enjoyed as a kid was they made the mistake of thinking that they could compete with the NFL, which is ridiculous. But I will pose this question. Let's say this league struggles. I think they're approaching it the right way. People got mad because some of their teams went away, but realistically, they couldn't stay afloat like that. I think they're doing it conservatively. You got St. Louis has knocked it out of the park as far as attendance goes for the UFL. They're averaging 35 plus thousand attendance at home games for the Battlehawks, and market really love football. They're showing up. Birmingham, I think, is right there in the top, but they're down there around 12,000. I think there was about 8 at the game we went to. But unfortunately, they've had Talladega. They've had bad weather that we all of us know about. Then also the game. My question is, if this league starts so there a chance that the NFL could expand and add teams to one of those thriving markets, i.e. St. Louis, and it be the Battlehawks? Just a thought.
Well, that's one thought that I had sitting here. I wasn't going to necessarily go down that hole, but if it were, whether the NFL buys them out or they enter into a partnership or whatever, they're going to have to put more teams in there no matter what. There's 32 NFL teams. There's only 8 UFL teams. They're gonna have to add more teams. They're at least gonna have to get to 16, I think, and then maybe look at NFL teams if they're going to do it. You know, if you want to be a part of this, you got to share a team with another team or whatever in the NFL. But I'll say a couple of things to that point real quick. The NFL, even so, it's already sort of being treated like it is a developmental league. The NFL's watching it.
Oh yeah,
the NFL's paying attention. You got guys like Alex Magoo from who played for the Stallions last year. Now is a backup quarterback for the Green Bay Packers, and is still on the team. They haven't cut him, not yet. He's still on the roster. Dylan Aubrey, I think his name is Dylan Aubrey. I know it's Aubrey is his last name. He's a kicker for the Dallas Cowboys who went in there one game. I think it was like his first game and kicks a 66-yard field goal that probably would have been good from 70. For the Dallas Cowboys, who was in the UFL last year. So
Brandon
Aubrey. That's right, Brandon Aubrey.
Yeah.
So they're watching. They are watching. They are treating it like a developmental league to a degree. They're watching. The other thing I'll say to it, and then JJ will get to you for what's on your mind. I know about 4 guys that's on this podcast right now. That's 1,000 times better than most of the commentators on these broadcasts. Okay. I'm just gonna say it. I'm just.
You don't like it. You don't like Sam Acho.
I think they're a little too goofy. That's the kind way I'll put it. I think most of them are a little too goofy. A lot of them have no personality for the ball game. I know they're trying to be neutral, and I'm not talking about need to get guys that are for one way or the other. But I mean, make the game entertaining on top of the game already being entertaining. Add to it, add to the camaraderie, add to the pomp and circumstance, if you will. Oh, and while we're talking about commentating, deadgummit, get the games off Sirius Radio, get the games off Sirius XM, and give them to hometown markets. Give them to the local radio stations, deadgummit. I'm a big time advocate for that because I work in the market. They want us to give away Stallions tickets, but we're not allowed to do anything with them other than give tickets away. Well, why the heck would we give tickets away if you're not even going to give us the games to put out there? Why should we do that for you? Promote your product when you won't let us do it the way we feel we could mostly help you, besides giving away free tickets. Sorry, I'm on a rant. JJ, go ahead with what's on your mind.
No, I want to just continue on that train because I really like Drew brought it up. Stallions playing great football. It's good football. They do have a base of fans. We saw that. I mean, are they packing protective? No. But they're trying to build this, right? They're trying to build this interest. It's good football. Maybe it's not as flashy as some of the football that we've seen. Maybe that's the kicker. It's not flashy, but they're fantastic defensively. They Martinez, I agree, should be the starter. They don't play as well with Corral at quarterback, and we'll see who comes out of this game on the 11th. But I think St. Louis and Birmingham are the class. And by the way, on purely aesthetic standpoint, have the two best looking uniforms in the league by far. So that's all I'm going to say. I wanted to go to that game on the 11th, but I've got something else going on. I'm going to be disappointed, but I would like to see what the attendance is going to be on that game, because that could be
a big
the
one.
fact. It'd be the regular season championship, so to speak, if you want to put it that way.
Well, there's that, and the fact that the Alabama boy comes home. It's
yes,
in Birmingham.
that's what I was about to say. Yes. AJ's playing great. He played good the other day. Played really good. And I'm going to ask this question again. Why has AJ McCarron not got a chance to start on an NFL team? That's all I'm asking. And
I don't have an answer for you other than they're stupid. They're stupid.
Look at the starter. No, wait, I'm not done yet. Look at some of the people that are starting in the NFL. Aiden O'Connell. I don't even know who he is or where he came from.
Michigan State, if I'm not mistaken.
Why is he starting an NFL game? You look at some of these teams. Look at who they're putting out there at quarterback. Minnesota, God love them. I don't even remember. They started 5 quarterbacks.
They had Josh Dobbs last year. I remember that.
There's not Josh Dobbs, who played like a champ after being there 2 days, and then it was all downhill from there. Yeah. I just don't understand. Back to the NFL draft. We're not smart people, obviously. Otherwise, we would be on TV, and they would be. But dang it. It's ridiculous. Yeah. I'm done.
All right. Well, let's move on and move forward as we get ready to enter into the closing phase, the final phase of this week's episode of FYFFE, the podcast, with a fan favorite. I know it's a favorite of a couple of us here, in that Greg Mears. Let me get you queued up here to give us where was Greg, the T-shirt segment. Greg, take us through where you been, my man.
These are the Cahokia Comanches, the Lords of the Plains. This is Cahokia, Illinois. I was on a trip to see a friend of mine who had a cancer scare up in St. Louis and ran across this little gym right here. Little small school, actually, very tiny school. Looks like about a 2A school out there. And last couple 2-3 years they've been around 500. You have to go back to, I think it was 18 and 19. They made it to the 3rd round of the playoffs. But like I said, you got the Comanches, man. They're the Lords of the Plains.
And we're going to throw up
much better than the convict.
Much better.
We're going to put the helmet up in post production on here as well, so you guys can see it.
Yeah, cool looking helmet.
Let me see if I can.
It is.
You guys can sort of see it in your text thread here. Let me back the view out here again and get it in gallery, but it's not showing up very well on the screen here. But it's a very nice helmet, Greg. I'll say this: you're going to get this school canceled now in this cancel culture. Thanks a lot, they say to you.
Well, y'all don't remember, like, I think it was my first one was the Broken Bow Savages. If those guys haven't gotten canceled yet. And that's exactly why I got it. I was like, Savages. Oh, this is fantastic.
Broken Bow, Oklahoma.
Broken Bow, Oklahoma Savages.
And I'm gonna reveal my nerd here for a second. And my wife is gonna roll her eyes when she hears this on Spotify, because she listens to us every week. I only know of Broken Bow, Oklahoma for one reason and one reason only. It's because of a sci-fi action TV, sci-fi fantasy show that came out called Star Trek Enterprise, starring Scott Bakula. Yeah, Mr. Quantum Leap himself. And the very first episode took place in Broken Bow, Oklahoma. So yeah, I'm nerding out. I mean, the show went 4 seasons, I think, if I remember right. But it started in Broken Bow, Oklahoma, and I've always been a big fan of Scott Bakula. I enjoy Quantum Leap, but I really got kind of enforced on that with Star Trek with him. So yeah, I'm nerding out. It's okay to like football and like Star Trek or Star Wars or whatever. Everybody's got to have their hobbies. Just saying. But anyway, let's move on and like I said, wrap this puppy up, because as we mentioned, baseball. a very good season to get to the second round of the playoffs and fall in. Softball is still in the thick of it here as they're getting their postseason underway. But JJ, there's a couple of things upcoming in particular for folks who need some help taking the ACT. This is going to drop on May 2nd, and what we bring up begins on May 1st. So tell the folks what they can get for these upcoming seniors.
Yeah, well, upcoming juniors and seniors. Wow, it gets here quick because I've got a senior this year. But all the upcoming juniors and seniors are encouraged to take the ACT summer boot camp to help prepare for the ACT. And if you're trying to get into college, it's really important. Matter of fact, that's first on the list. Open up avenues for some cash, and you'll need it as a college student. So class is going to be held weekly in July. Drew's a college student, and he's grinning, so he knows. The class is going to begin in July on the 1st. Registration is going to open up Wednesday, May 1st, and limited spots will be available. And those forms can be picked up in the high school office, and the class will be taught by Mrs. Durham. If you want to find out more, you can visit the FYFFE High School or Red Devil Radio Show Facebook pages. ACT cash for college. It means that.
It does, Greg.
Well,
It
speaking of
does,
the
I know
seniors, speaking of the seniors, the 5 class of 2024 baccalaureate service will be held May 19th at the 5 Church of God. Somebody's name that we've mentioned a lot on here, Caden Sharp, will be bringing the message to the congregation and his fellow seniors. And then the graduation is the Monday right after that, May 20 to 6 p.m. at Paul Benefield Stadium, weather permitting. If bad weather, they'll move it into the gym, but hopefully they'll be out there under the stars.
JJ, I got to ask, how you feeling?
It's I haven't really been feeling period, but I'm starting to think about it because it's getting closer, and it's kind of maybe relief, I guess, that one phase is over, but then you start looking at everything else that's ahead, and parenting doesn't stop even if they're grown. So
yeah, welcome to my world, old man.
Yeah, I know, and it's like, oh gosh, but I've got to, I probably won't cry. I say that probably, but you never know. No guarantees.
I only cried when both
If
of
I
mine told me they
do,
were going
I'll
to
never
Auburn.
admit.
That's when I
Were
cried.
the ACT scores when he found out they got scholarships? He was all smiles.
yeah. The oldest one did really, really well. But yeah,
it's like, okay. Well, he's
going
like,
Auburn.
War Eagle, baby.
What?
Well, I'll say this: I'm not a parent yet. I don't, and for 18 years, I got to wait till the graduation time gets here. But at least at 5, for instance, this will be the last time for a while that there's a ward walking through the hallways. The last one that graduated before is now a Sims, a ward by maiden name, and so this will be the last time for a while that a ward walks those halls. And who knows what the Lord leads us to do with the next ward that comes through, because right now I'm the only one having another ward. So, or I should say my wife's having her, but whatever.
Yeah. Hey, easy, man. Yeah.
Adam,
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, and I know that we've told you this before, but I guarantee you from the 3 of us, we can tell you welcome to the best time of your life, man, because it is going to be a blast.
Hey, I'm going to throw my hands up and say I'm all for it. I'm all for it. By the way, this is not purely decoration for those watching. I did not pick blue. I nearly chopped half my thumb off working in the nursery for my baby girl over the weekend. And we bandaged it up on Saturday, and I kind of waited too long. I should have went to the doctor and had it looked at. Did go Sunday and seen our friend Sabrina Butts up at a sponsor of FYFFE football, actually for us on the radio side of Family First Medicine. And she said if I'd have come in when I'd done it, I'd have had 2, 3, 4 stitches. But the healing process has already begun, so she's not going to mess with it. So she's got me bandaged up real good. So just so you know, this was the only tape she had. So you know why I say that.
Super glue that sucker.
That's too much blue. Too much blue.
Hey, so we're in planting season. So what does a blue thumb mean? I know what a black thumb is or a green thumb, but what's a blue thumb?
I'm gonna pass on any remarks.
I'm help him, Lord. 'Cause I don't have a clue. I don't know where you're going with this.
Well, I don't have an answer. I'm just asking.
Oh, that's a sign we're getting loopy, and we probably need to knock it off.
Useless. Your source for useless information.
And with that, folks, we remind you that this week's episode of FYFFE, the podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FYFFE. Listen, get on out, support these young people. Most of you that watch us, you've probably got a kid or a grandkid out there in Little League ball right now. Get out and enjoy them. And when you're there, go visit the concessions and whatnot and get you something, get you a drink or whatever you need. But go right next door, because right next to the concessions is FYFFE. They're there to give you 35 different flavors. My gosh, they can combine them. You saw it last week. My wife got red velvet cake, said it tasted exactly like red velvet cake. Very sweet, very tasty. Folks, I mean, you can get them to your event as well, whether it's church function, sporting function, a work function. Maybe you're a boss. Maybe JJ wants to throw a thing for his employees over at Coca-Cola and
I'm
get
not a boss.
FYFFE out there. I don't know. Hey, maybe you just want to suck up to the
Hey,
bosses.
hey, edit that. I'll have somebody call me like, "Hey, what are you doing advertising slushy?"
Hey, Adam, I don't know if you noticed last week too. They had 2 trailers out there, so you don't even have to walk far. They had one down at the other fields down there a little bit lower, so heck, you
Really?
didn't have to walk all the way to the concession stand. They had 2 trailers out there for your convenience.
Boom. See, I didn't see that, but great observation out of you.
I took the wrong way in and had to walk about a half a mile to get in. I had to pass the first one before I got to the other one.
Well, listen, we do need to get them on, because we are heading towards the very end of our podcast season. The goal was to get it at least through spring practice, and by the time this drops, we're going to be in May, so we're not very far from it. And should we decide to take this on into graduation week, graduation being on a Monday, that we can go ahead and tell you this now, there will be no recording on that Monday night, because both JJ and I have a vested interest and Drew does by virtue as well, a vested interest in this particular class because of family that's in the class. So there'll be no recording on that Monday. We might even be forced to take the week off, from the pod. I don't know. We're going to figure all that out. We'll let you know. But the plan was to get it through spring practice, get it into the May at some point, and then take the break for the summer and allow folks to enjoy summer, and some of us do what we need to do.
I got to know, because I'm running out of shirts. I'm going to have to go on some more trips. I've got about 4 or 5 left. I need to go traveling.
JJ said he's taking a break from work this week, so load him up and take a hike.
We can go up to Chattanooga and get the Purple Pounders out of Chattanooga. Go up a little bit further and get the web feet. There's
make a day trip. Make a little day trip out of it. Hey, there's a QT on the way to Chattanooga too. You can get you a nice icy soft drink thing there that I love. Drew knows I got to stop there every time I stop by a QT. But anyway,
nice. Our
friends at FYFFE, they bring it to you every week. 256-717-7239. Again, 256-717-7239. I'm Adam Ward for Drew Sims, Greg Mears, and Jeremy Johnson, saying so long, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your week. May God bless each and every one of you. And as always, go Big Red.
Mwah.